Can the 7900 XT really hit 120Hz in VR? I tested 7 games to find out, and the results might surprise you. From Half-Life Alyx to Ghost of Tabor, I can't believe I've been letting these games sit in my library unplayed for so long. By the end of this video, you'll see what it takes to hit 120Hz in VR, and then you can determine the resolution or graphics changes that you might make for higher quality or more frames. First, let's talk about my setup. I'm running a PowerColor Radeon 7900 XT with a Ryzen 5700X and 32GB of DDR4 RAM clocked at 3200 MHz. But here's the thing. While it's a respectable build, I know that I could see better performance and produce better benchmarks upgrading to AM5. That's why I've already ordered a Ryzen 9800X3D, 64GB of DDR5, and an X870 motherboard. Once I get those all set up, I'll retest everything and see how much of a difference it makes switching to AM5. I also ran into overheating issues with my PowerColor 7900 XT. I imagine it is thermal throttling in demanding games, which could definitely impact performance. And I'm actually in talks with PowerColor right now to hopefully maybe extend my RMA on the GPU. So with that, let's jump into the first game. In Half-Life Alyx, we started with ultra fidelity at 3936 by 2112 and 120Hz. This proved to be an issue for my PC, but I think it has something to do with the default settings I left in the Oculus Debug tool. At the end of the video, I talk a bit more about this and what I'll do next time.
It's not terrible. I feel like I could notice like a little bit of stutter. Well, I don't know. Let's keep playing actually. It could be worse. So 90 FPS still. Of course, the average is going to be a little bit lower. This is how I get home? I just go home through... Oh my god!
Yeah, that's where they keep it.
I'll look around for a control panel to open it.
Next I went back to 120Hz, but with a tiny bit higher resolution, just to see the performance impact.
But okay, so yeah, resolution probably better. Doesn't seem crazy a ton better. And the FPS is going to be higher, but I feel like it's varying a lot more. Yeah, this one is pretty choppy. You see a bunch of yellow up there. 120Hz at this resolution with ultra graphics might be a bit much to ask from the RX 7900 XT. In a game like this, I do value some good looking graphics though. In Contractors, we're at 4108 by 2208 with high graphics at 120Hz. Okay, so I've been playing, I have ASW off, and I was at 118.5 average FPS. But I was not recording, so now I just want to record and I want to see how that impacts it.
In this case, recording didn't seem to impact my performance too much, but generally you can expect a 5 to 15% performance hit when recording. I'll have to try different encoding settings to see the difference.
And, well, the FPS is doing better. It's almost like disabling ASW in that FPS VR menu made it do better. Yeah, see, FPS is even going up, so... yeah, it seems to be doing pretty well. For me, it says performance headroom like 20.
In a game like this, I feel like you need 120Hz, and luckily with this GPU, it works fine. Red Matter 2 ran flawlessly at 3936 by 2112, so I bumped up the resolution almost immediately.
Invisible.
Yeah, still at like 50 performance headroom. But I heard this game favors AMD GPUs.
I'm in for a while.
Well, the headroom for me is a
transfer
lot
your
lower.
mind into a
I
different
do
body.
see that
It
it's
was our
about
only
20
shot at
now,
pulling
but
you
it's
from the
flying up and
simulation
down
safely.
so quick.
I know.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It does look
But you have
sharper, I
plenty of
feel.
questions, and
So even with a resolution of 4704 by 2528, with all the in-game graphics on, Red Matter 2 runs great at 120Hz. One thing I've learned while testing is that VR performance has so many variables. With QuestLink, SteamVR, and Virtual Desktop, there's lots of different optimizations and settings. Since QuestLink introduces some quirks, I think I'll try Virtual Desktop in the future. Let me know if that's something that you'd want to see.
Okay, so here we are in Zero Caliber. We're not playing the best right now because I've decided to keep the same resolution from Red Matter 2. But I could see on my Oculus Debug tool that we're sitting at 60 frames per second, and we have no performance headroom. We're actually in the red.
So I did lower the resolution back down to 3936 by 2112, but I also wanted to add that this game doesn't run on SteamVR, so the SteamVR graph we see in the top left doesn't actually reflect what the game's doing. So that graph, I think, is just reflecting that window in Steam.
Yeah, this map is definitely easier to render though. But okay, yeah, we're at 120 FPS on this again.
I was paying attention to the Oculus Debug tool throughout this game, so I could see that we were staying at 120 FPS. Maybe these maps were a bit easier to render, but this game seems pretty solid.
Wow, it's running very nice. We're at 120 hertz. There's like 50% performance headroom. Wow, let's go 8 times. Nope, let's go 4 times.
At 3936 by 2112, the 7900 XT had performance to spare.
I think I'm just gonna try it on a higher resolution setting. Right now it's running too good. Okay, so now ASW is disabled and we are at a higher resolution. Okay. See, this is a cool game. I like this Breachers game. It feels nice too.
So Breachers ran fine even at 4480 by 2400, and you could probably even bump up the resolution some more.
It's probably the most fun VR shooter that I've tried yet. Love the idea, feels great, runs great, and I think it'd be more fun in multiplayer for sure.
With high graphics and a resolution of 4128 by 2208, Into the Radius 2 ran great on the 7900 XT. And just like Red Matter 2 and Zero Caliber, ignore the Steam VR graph, but the one above about GPU and CPU diagnostics should be accurate.
So is it lagging? It doesn't really seem like it. It seems like it's doing pretty well.
Hopefully I can find a better way to test this in the future, like getting the Oculus Debug tool on screen. I could see in most of the games today that my CPU and GPU never really hit 100%, but 120Hz was still not a problem here as we averaged close to 120, around 119. I recently started playing Tarkov and Delta Force, so trying out Ghost of Tabor in VR was a pretty cool experience.
Oh, that looks cool. I'll take that.
I definitely feel comfortable playing these settings at 120Hz, but I'll have to try it with ASW off and on my new AM5 system. ASW is kind of like FSR or DLSS in that it helps maintain a smooth motion by generating artificial frames. This makes gameplay feel more fluid, just like how FSR and DLSS improve perceived performance by upscaling lower resolution frames. However, just like those upscalers, ASW can introduce minor artifacts. This could be ghosting or warping, and this will slightly reduce the image clarity. If you disable ASW, you'll get a cleaner, fully rendered image similar to running a game at native resolution. Even though I had ASW disabled in the Oculus Debug tool, I guess FPS VR can override that, and on close inspection, I didn't really notice much of a difference in quality between the two. That is, when it's active or just enabled. I realized that with the Oculus Debug tool settings left at default, my encoding and performance settings would be changing on a whim. So next time I might try setting a specific encoding width, use virtual desktop, or just keep everything at default, depending on what people want to see, of course. Either way, let's take these results as a starting point as I get used to VR and refine my methodology. So, can the 7900 XT hit 120Hz in VR? Well, yes, depending on your tolerance for resolution and in-game graphics. In games like Half-Life Alyx, I could have switched from ultra to high to get that boost from an average of 108 to closer to 120, and other games like Breachers and Red Matter 2 were absolutely no problem. Resolution plays a huge role, and upgrading my CPU to the 9800X3D will let my GPU stretch its legs more. Once my new hardware arrives, I'll retest everything and see how much of a difference it makes. So I hope PowerColor could really help me out and RMA this card. I did buy it launch days, so 2 years have passed since then, and now it's out of warranty. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more VR and hardware content. And if you're interested in performance in flat screen games, check out this video where I benchmark some of the latest and most demanding ones.